from the South, the morning news brief on Telesur English. We begin this new edition right now. We begin in Peru, where President Pablo Kuczynski is due to testify before Congress in the coming hours. The majority in Congress, led by Keiko Fujimori, is seeking to impeach him for his alleged links to bribes paid by the Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. The president says this would amount to a coup.
Along with my two vice presidents, I will maintain with complete conviction my commitment to the country, and I will defend my moral capacity to continue to serve all Peruvians until the end of my term. The attack on the institutions, the nation's presidency, the prosecutor's office and the constitutional court will constitute not only a political coup, but also an economic blow to the prosperous Peru we all wish for.
Protesters filled the streets of Lima on Wednesday night to denounce corruption and demand a clean government. Many of them said President Kuczynski should be removed, but they also expressed no confidence in the right-wing majority in Congress who are leading the impeachment process. They say the supporters of Keiko Fujimori are also corrupt and that all of them should go.
People, I think, are completely angry and with good cause over the recent corrupt acts by the President, members of Parliament and regional presidents. What's happening with the current president, PPK, and ultimately with his removal, because it seems that's where we are heading, and it seems to us right, is that we need to change the rules of the game. This democracy has been promoting corruption for years.
We want our country to be a country of laws because all our governments have sold us out. They have no idea what national sovereignty is, and they have no interest in the actual people. Those dreadful pro-Fujimori members of Congress are not interested in the actual people. They are only interested in continuing to enrich themselves with the money they get from the people of Peru.
Earlier, our correspondent in Lima, Veronica Insausti, explained the process that President Kuczynski is facing.
Tomorrow, President Pablo Kuczynski will appear in Congress to testify on the Odebrecht case. He will be granted 60 minutes to present evidence regarding the accusations linking him to the Brazilian construction company. He is accused of receiving money from Odebrecht between 2004 and 2006 while working as Prime Minister for the government of Alejandro Toledo. Peru's constitution says that it is a crime against the public administration to sign contracts with businesses working for the state while being a public servant. In this sense, Kuczynski is accused of benefiting himself with almost $800,000. After his appearance in Congress, the members will have to decide if they will proceed with the impeachment. In order to do so, they need 87 votes, although so far, 90 congressmen have said they will vote in favour of the impeachment. It's important to note that the President of the Supreme Court of Justice, Juberly Rodriguez, has said he received 14 constitutional complaints against the process from different people, among them President Pablo Kuczynski himself. If the Supreme Court accepts those complaints, the decision from Congress will have no effect. The court has 3 days to put these complaints into effect. Meanwhile, General Secretary of the Organization of American States, Diego Almagro, has said they received requests regarding the unconstitutional impeachment process, as he defined it. Almagro has decided to send OAS delegates to Peru to oversee the process. Combined, these two legal actions could put a stop on the impeachment process against President Kuczynski. We will keep you informed.
That was Veronica Insausti from Lima. There has been more repression in Argentina, this time in the northern province of Jujuy, against sugar workers. 7 people were wounded when the police launched an attack with tear gas and rubber bullets against members of the local sugar workers' union who had occupied a bridge. They were demanding unpaid back pay and Christmas bonuses, as well as the rehiring of 400 workers who had been sacked. 20 union leaders and activists were arrested. The daughter of one of them told of her fears for her family.
What are you asking the police?
I'm asking them not to do anything. I'm scared for all these people here and for my family as well. I really don't know why all of this is happening.
Your father works here?
Yes, my father works here and some people I know. I can go to school because of my father, because his salary is the only one that we can depend on.
And there were more protests in the Argentine capital after the Congress passed President Macri's pension reform bill at dawn on Tuesday. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, has the latest.
Tension remains high in Argentina. It began on Monday with a ferocious repression by the security forces against those protesting against the pension reform. There were pot-banging protests that night which were repeated on Tuesday. It's worth remembering that the 19th and 20th of December are emblematic days in Argentina because in 2001, those were the days which put an end to the government of De la Rúa, with 33 dead across the country. The repression has moved now to the north of Argentina, to Jujuy, where workers at the Esperanza sugar mill are demanding unpaid wages, end-of-the-year bonuses, and against the sacking of 400 workers. They were severely repressed by the police of Governor Gerardo Morales, with tear gas and rubber bullets, with many arrested. There is a lot of tension in the north, where we should remember that the activist Milagro Sala is detained. Today there was a forum for democracy and the release of political prisoners. 18 people have now been detained arbitrarily, so democracy seems to be weakened, ever less respected for legal rights, and people taking to the streets to demand respect for the constitutional guarantees, and that the economy cuts should not affect the poorest, as is the case with this week's reform by the government of Mauricio Macri. Back to you in the studio.
That was Sabrina Roth from Buenos Aires. The presidents of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay are preparing to meet in Brasilia at the Mercosur summit. On Wednesday, the foreign ministers of the regional bloc discussed the agenda for the meeting. It is expected to concentrate on economic integration and a planned free trade agreement with the European Union. Bolivia and Guyana are taking part as associate members, and President Evo Morales is due to present a report on the progress of the railway project. And Panamanians commemorated on Wednesday the 28th anniversary of the U.S. invasion to their country. Thousands of people were killed in the military operation, and the protesters wanted to be a day of national mourning.
Members of different social movements marched to commemorate another year of the U.S. aggression against the country. They don't want people to forget.
We remember today that 20 years have passed since the U.S. invasion, a cruel day which we want to be recognized as a day of mourning. We want the U.S. to admit that they led a criminal invasion and to apologize to the Panamanian people for their actions.
On December the 20th, 1989, the U.S. armed forces began what they called Operation Just Cause. It was supposed to remove General Manuel Noriega from power. These people say it was another example of how the United States interferes in Latin America. Even after a commission was set up in 2014 to investigate the events, not all the victims of the invasion have been identified, and people don't believe they will ever get justice.
5,000 dead people do not mean anything to the oligarchy in this country, nor to political parties like PRO, Cambio Democrático, the Analfist movement, and others who have been ruling this country for 27 years. And because this means nothing to them, the dead haven't been identified, no tribute has been paid to them, and this day hasn't even been declared as a national day of mourning.
There is still a North American presence in Panama, and the invasion was just the beginning of a series of pro-imperialist governments.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Brazil's Lava Jato operation, which investigates the cases of bribery and corruption surrounding Petrobras, has been held up as a symbol of the fight against corruption. However, some lawyers have reported irregularities in the process, which suggests the investigation has turned into a political tool.
Irregularities in the Lava Jato investigation have come to light with the declarations of Rodrigo Tacla Duran before a Senate committee. He is the lawyer of Odebrecht, one of the main companies involved.
There has been abuse of power in Lava Jato. Zucoloto, a friend of Judge Moro, proposed to Duran that he pay money to make negotiations easier with some of the parties in the scheme. Tacla Duran finally decided not to accept this deal because they were even trying to make him admit to crimes he did not commit.
For the ex-Minister of Justice, Eugenio Aragão, the Lava Jato operation, which was in the beginning something positive to fight corruption, is now an instrument with irregularities that goes beyond Brazil's borders.
Behind this, there is an obvious cooperation, wider than what this group has with the U.S. government. We see this with its performance in Venezuela, with their actions in Peru, with their actions in Ecuador, where the progressive governments or those who belong to them are systematically accused of corruption and complicity with Odebrecht and others in the bribery network.
Members of the oil workers' union say that apart from the political impact, the Lava Jato investigation is affecting the economic and industrial development of Brazil.
In the petroleum sector alone, 2 million jobs have gone, and overall more than 10 million people have been made unemployed. This is just an example of what Lava Jato means. As Brazilians and workers, we believe that the Lava Jato is no longer about fighting corruption, but a means of handing over Brazil's mineral resources, our oil and our industry.
Legal experts say the case of Lula da Silva is perhaps the clearest reflection of how the operation goes beyond its constitutional powers and becomes a weapon of political persecution.
And another social leader was killed in Colombia on Monday. Social organizations say that over 160 leaders were killed in 2017 alone. Our correspondent Lorena Hoyo has more in this next report.
164 social leaders were killed in 2017 alone in Colombia. The most recent murder was registered this Monday. This time, the victim was Adolfo Perez, president of Junta de Acción Comunal, located in Pan de Azucar, part of the municipality of Patie in the department of El Cauca. Perez was shot several times. Social leaders are worried about the lack of security guarantees and government measures to protect their lives. Civilians are also outraged about these events, and in particular, about the declarations made by the Ministry of Defense. Luis Carlos Villegas, who said the majority of these murders were the consequence of personal problems, neighbor conflicts, and illicit businesses the victims carried. Social organizations harshly criticized and rejected the declarations. At the same time, human rights organizations say that the ministry's words stigmatize and re-victimize those killed, and above all, deny the real tragedy that is happening in Colombia. The political violence leaders are facing, and the fact that they are targeted for defending their land and the peace process in the country. Social organizations are asking the justice system to investigate the Ministry of Defense for what he has said.
That was Lorena Hoyos from Colombia. It's time for soul-searching for the center-left parties in Chile after their defeat in Sunday's election. The right-wing former president and billionaire Sebastián Piñera beat their candidates by almost 10%. More details in the next report.
For the third time, President Michelle Bachelet and Sebastián Piñera will meet in the National Congress in March for the swearing of the new presidency. That's why on Tuesday morning, the current leader visited the home of the elected president for a working meeting to discuss current projects and to coordinate the transition.
It's still too early to come up with any conclusions. The truth is that we have a democratic system, and in a democratic system, people decide and government respect that. What we should do is facilitate things so that the elected government can start with all the information it needs.
There have been days for reflection, with the candidate of the new majority coalition making a sharp self-analysis after losing in the second round. He called for unity among the progressive forces.
In the meeting with the new presidents of the parties of the new majority, so far, which are part of the progressive movements, there was a willingness and an awareness of the need to come together more than ever and work to have a solid progressive position in Congress.
This as a part of a restructuring of the center-left after a defeat that forces them to deepen relations with the broad front and social movements, which are today growing, given the return of a right-wing government.
There's a worldwide view in which Chile is not an exception, of course. This is a major setback. It's an obstacle, and we will have to wait a little longer. But the activists of civil society, regardless of our political position, will continue every day as if Alejandro Aguirre had won.
Free education, tax reforms, and other economic measures are some of the issues that still remain uncertain, given the potential changes that could be made to reform programs of President Michelle Bachelet. The new composition of the Congress will be key for these further discussions.
Today, who will be in Sebastián Piñera's team will be fundamental. The people he selects for the Interior Ministry, the ones he chooses for the Ministry of the Secretary of Presidency, which oversees the relation with the Parliament and a process of dialogue, of discussion and negotiation.
What is clear is that today Sebastián Piñera returns to the government's palace with the largest percentage of votes for the right since the return of democracy. The issues and responsibility of the current government in this defeat are just some of the questions the center-left will have to reflect on.
Earlier this year, we brought you a series of reports from the Mapuche indigenous lands of southern Chile, an area seldom visited by journalists. To mark the end of 2017, we're giving you another chance to see these exclusive stories. Here is the second in the series by Telesur's Paola Dragnic and Juan Pablo Aranela.
To the naked eye, this green landscape can be misleading. It looks like a natural forest, but it isn't. These are thousands of hectares of industrial plantations of pine and eucalyptus, genetically controlled and harvested systematically, mainly to produce cellulose. The ecosystem is no more. Natural water sources, life itself, cannot develop in this arid and acid soil. Before, there were Mapuche communities living here.
The communities always lived around these hills. These hills were their point of reference. In the traditional vision we have between man and nature and everything this relationship provides. From balance and biodiversity to Litrophilemonian, Machuquimun and everything we Mapuche know as the forms of life and the conception of man and the world.
The Mapuche's demand to recover the land is not a whim. There are still some protected spaces that survive as a result of their resistance. Areas where the water, the hills, and the ancient Araucaria trees express this Mapuche philosophy, in which the identity and territory cannot be separated.
We are Mapuche, people from the land, people who are in direct connection with the territory. That's why it's our responsibility to recover our land, so this territory can live again.
The government of Salvador Allende promoted a reform to give them back their lands. But during the Pinochet dictatorship and the democratic governments that followed, the Mapuche were left with crumbs and their lands were given away to companies.
Our territory has been devastated by capitalism and multinational companies, because the Chilean state has given these lands to foreign people for them to fill their pockets with money, while our people are still living in poverty, squeezed into tiny communities. That's why we, as Mapuche youth, have the responsibility to take up this fight again.
The logging companies dominate over 3 million hectares, today owned by Winca families, as they call the white settlers in the Mapudungun language. All this thanks to the millions of dollars in subsidies from the Chilean state, and to the police who protect these businesses, repressing the Mapuche's attempts to recover their land, resources, and autonomy. The Mapuche also reject their assistantialism of what they call forced inclusion by the state.
These communities live basically from agriculture, animal husbandry, and also what we call productive reappropriation. The state calls this a crime. They say we are stealing wood. We say we are taking back the raw material located on the land that was stolen from us.
And, according to them, they're willing to recover whatever they can, however they can.
The biggest archipelago of the four surrounding Cuba was practically destroyed after Hurricane Irma. 3 months after, we visited the location in the north coast of the island and one of the most important touristic spots in the Caribbean.
The stone path turning into an improvised highway overlooking the sea is a testament to what visitors can expect. This road was destroyed by Hurricane Irma, the strongest ever registered in the Atlantic Ocean, although it leads to the amazing natural beauty of Coco Cay. Here we found an Italian fishing guide waiting for the sunset.
Aquí encontramos a este guía de pesca italiano.
I've been fishing at Marina Gaviota all day. I had a great time. This place is great for fishing. It's been 14 years since I've been to Cuba.
And what do you think of its recovery?
Great and very fast. The road is really good and the bridges are also recovered.
Visitors are surprised when they see hotels that have lost their roofs and gardens.
We were the first ones to come back after the hurricane. We were surprised to see the extent of the damage. The hotel was destroyed, and we didn't think that we were going to recover this fast. It's been a huge accomplishment.
We couldn't believe it. We did all this work in around 2 months, fast and effective. I think visitors are the biggest witnesses of what we did. Not us who saw those images that were published around the world. Visitors wouldn't believe if they would have seen it before.
The head of the kitchen was among the 10 people that stayed in the hotel when Hurricane Irma hit. He said he felt scared, but he knew his duty was to take care of the property. Now he feels proud for the job everyone's made. Sol Cayo Coco Hotel was the first one to open its doors just a month and a half after Irma.
Visitors have to keep on coming, without fear, as many regular clients have returned. Everything is ready to receive them with a big desire to work. We haven't lost that charisma that tourists like so much. Sol Cayo Coco Hotel maintains that Cuban identity, beautiful beaches and a safe place to vacation. Cuba is the safest tourism destination in the world.
Nights at Cayo Coco are unforgettable. Felix, that left the island in 1993, can visit without having moments like this.
I am surprised because I never thought they could rebuild everything in such short time. Everything is great.
Hotels prepare for the peak vacation season as new visitors arrive. Just as Cuban authorities said, tourism is fully moving and most services are working for the high season. Fabiola Lopez, Telesur, Cayo Coco, Cuba.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Voting is underway in Catalonia for a new administration in an election many hope will resolve Spain's worst crisis in decades. This comes after the region declared independence, leading Madrid to sack local leaders. Final polls showed separatist and unionist parties running neck and neck, and it was unclear whether the election will deliver an effective pro-independence majority. Now here's a roundup of the news making headlines in other parts of the world.
At least 14 people have been injured, including a child with a serious head injury after a car plowed into a crowd near a railway station in Melbourne, Australia. Police have arrested the driver and a second man. Authorities believe that it was a deliberate act, but said the motivation was still unknown.
At approximately 4:45 p.m. this afternoon, a vehicle has struck a number of pedestrians in the Melbourne CBD at the intersection of Flinders and Elizabeth Street. Police arrived at the scene within minutes and have arrested 2 men. At this stage, we have 14 people injured and several are critical. At this stage, we believe it is a deliberate act. Can I repeat that? At this stage, we believe it is a deliberate act. However, we do not know the motivation and it is still early stages of the investigation.
President of the United States Donald Trump has threatened to cut off financial aid to countries that back a United Nations resolution opposing the recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. His remarks come ahead of a UN General Assembly vote on a resolution opposing any recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Trump also hailed the tax reform bill as a victory for his administration.
These are the people right behind me. They've worked so long, so hard. It's been an amazing experience, I have to tell you. Hasn't been done in 34 years, but actually really hasn't been done because we broke every record. It's the largest, I always say the most massive, but it's the largest tax cut in the history of our country. And reform, but tax cut. Really something special.
Cyril Ramaphosa, the newly elected president of South Africa's governing party, the African National Congress, has vowed to fight corruption. Ramaphosa made the pledge while closing the party's conference. He also promised to pursue a policy of, quote, radical economic transformation and to tackle unemployment. Ugandan lawmakers voted overwhelmingly on Wednesday to remove presidential age limits. This paves the way for President Yoweri Museveni to serve a sixth term in office. The highly controversial bill passed with 315 votes for, 62 against, and 2 abstentions after 3 days of chaotic debates in which some opposition MPs were suspended while others walked out.
Giant painted faces of children are appearing in different places in the Cuban capital, Havana, astonishing pedestrians. So who are these children and who is the artist behind these paintings?
They are huge portraits that show up in very unusual corners of the city. Large murals, sometimes funny, sometimes mysterious, but always of innocent children of the community. They are part of the wall painting series Colossals, a non-profit artistic project done by its author Maisel Lopez, who was inspired by Jose Marti's philosophy, with the humble and for the humble.
I believe that children are a vital part for the development of any nation. That's why I paint them big.
Maisel declares that his art is for everyone. He explains that the essence of his work is photorealistic because it emerges from a reality captured by a lens. He says that his passion for street art has come after his stay in Venezuela, where he was supporting the Bolivarian process as a member of the cultural mission.
I think it's nice when there's an eroded wall because art could brighten it up. And their contrast between deterioration and art could be very interesting. I don't need anybody to finance my work because it comes from deep inside of me, and I wish for my art to go straight from me to the community.
What satisfies this young artist the most is knowing his colossal murals can be seen by any of the pedestrians. This young artist has decided to be like Maisel when he grows up. Graduating from the San Alejandro Academy of Fine Arts in Havana, this 32-year-old artist teaches painting to children with special needs in the Cultural Center. Nowadays, he is preparing his students for a self-portrait exposition.
Everybody loves you very much.
This is the most recent of Maisel's work. It's his contribution to the fight against violence towards women and children. Maisel knows that his artwork could be temporary. The humid climate of Cuba does not help. But the most important thing for him is to create happiness in the people who look at his murals and to let them know that there's a painter out there who paints giant children due to their importance in our society.
And we've come to the end of this morning news brief. This and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.